Hello and welcome to Bell Speaks. Today, our topic is going to be about quarantine exposed. And basically, ever since COVID-19 happened, our lives as we know it has definitely changed drastically. And we have been quarantined in our homes with our families. And there are 7 things that I want to go over to make sure that we pay attention to those specific things that I'm going to talk about that's affecting not all of us, but most of us in one way or another. Thank you so much to our medical professionals, our delivery people, our truck drivers, public safety, like everyone who has been, serving to the public. Thank you so much. But in particular, I want to highlight our medical professionals, not just our medical professionals to say thank you. We appreciate what you do, but those particular people who have been specifically affected personally by COVID-19. I think that's something to really think about because they have not been at home with their families the way that we have been, and they have been taking care of other people's families. But what about the people who have been personally affected, the people who've lost kids and parents and loved ones? And they still have to show up at work, work really long hours, and still be there for them. Not only that, but the amount of death that they see in a day, it is not normal. It's not, that's something that you see during war. And we know what happens to our veterans when they come home usually. A lot of them struggle with the PTSD of their experiences. Our medical professionals see so much at work right now, and for a lot of them, they have never experienced anything like this before. They have never experienced seeing this magnitude of death on their clocks in a day at a time. Like it's overwhelming. And yet still they still show up and they still perform and they still serve and they still save lives and they do an amazing job at it and they don't complain, right? But what about their loss and when they have to deal with their own loss? How are they dealing with that? In reality, they don't have time to even process what's happening at work, much less in their personal lives. And what about the people who have been directly affected aside from the medical professionals right now who are on the front lines, but the regular people who lost so many loved ones? What about them? Like to go from being healthy to being gone in a matter of days for a loved one is very, very difficult. It's traumatic not have a regular funeral, memorial, burial, whatever, just to honor that person that you love and let them go in peace. Like it's really difficult because you can't, the world is different. And this disease, COVID-19, it hit different, And so if you know someone who is a medical professional, I don't care if you don't even know them like that. Like reach out and see what you could do to assist them as they go through this difficult time like the rest of us. Just know that their experiences are way different because they're on the front line. You may know they have children. If it's something as simple as just making sure they have dinner at night and you leave it at the door, whatever it is that you need to do, reach out to those people and be your brother and your sister's keeper because right now we really need to hold each other up, okay? So according to so many platforms, I'm going to just name a few of them, which is the New York Times, The Guardian, USA Today, the University of Virginia. So many outlets are reporting, guys, that there is a domestic violence surge that's going on globally around the world right now. And they're reporting 10 to 30%. Now, I want you to consider that not everyone is actually reporting that they're being abused because it's something very embarrassing and something very, very, very personal that people are going through in silence. So if you know someone, if you hear someone, if you hear your neighbor being abused, if you hear someone abusing their child, if you see something, please say something because God forbid that person end up dead. You don't want that blood on your hands. The second thing that I would like us to consider right now, and that is abuse in the home. If you are a person who's going through any type of psychological, emotional, or sexual abuse in your home, Think about it. Right now, you're stuck at home with your abuser if that person lived there. And an abuser could be anyone. It could be a friend, a uncle, a mother, a father, a child. It could be anybody, anyone who may be abusive to another person in the house right now, or a person that's married. And let's say your husband is abusive or your wife is abusive, because women are abusers too. And now you were stuck at home with that person, hitting on you or slapping you around or talking down to you, making you feel bad. All those things are signs of abuse, whether it's verbal, emotional, mental, it's or sexual. It's all abuse, right? And if you are stuck at home with someone who is your abuser, now you can't go anywhere, and it becomes taunting because now there are no breaks. So if you used to go to work and you used to get some time away from home, now you're stuck with your husband who critique you in every single way, or your wife, right? And the same goes for children. If a child, most children are either physically or sexually abused. So let's say that a child is being raped or molested at home. School is not a factor at the moment. So where that was once an escape to be around other people, friends, not just that, but what about the educators who would pick up on something being wrong, who would pick up on neglect? They can't do that through a computer screen, and that could be really, really, really overwhelming for a kid who not only don't know how to deal with their emotions, but also deal with something so heavy. It could cause them to harm themselves or others. So if you are a person and you are being abused, please don't be abused at home in silence. You have to say something to someone, especially if you're an adult. You have to find a way to get out of that situation, but don't suffer in silence. We have to speak up. That's the only way that you would get help. Now, moving on to just the children in the house and the parents and guardians, let's talk about neglect. Please, parents and guardians, I know that right now is hard. And I know that you may be stressed and have a lot of things on your mind, but please don't neglect your children. Don't neglect your kids. Still try to spend time with them, talk to them, try to figure out, how they're doing, because they're little people with feelings too. And you have to also consider how all of these big changes are affecting the kids. Don't tell your kids go outside and play and not care about, did they shower today, did they do their schoolwork today, are they still doing well in school, are they struggling. Still be present. I know that you're at home, and I know that for everybody right now there's a lot on our plates, but you have to still be present in your child's life. Don't not feed your kids. Ramen noodles and hot dogs are not meals. Okay? They're not meals. Please don't give your children ramen noodles and hot dogs as meals every day and let them put stuff in the microwave and heat it up. And you're at home, and especially if you get food stamps and you have steak, crab legs, and shrimp and lobster for you and your man, and your kids are eating ramen noodles, please don't do that. Please feed your children fruits and vegetables and a balanced meal, because that is critical to their development. Moving on. Please feed your children decent meals. I don't care if you cannot cook. You do not have an excuse. You could go on YouTube. You could go on social media. You could figure out how to do something in the kitchen. Like, please don't feed your kids ramen noodles and hot dogs. I personally was a foster parent for a lot of years. I actually still am a foster parent, though I'm not fostering now. But I have been around a lot of children who always say the children who are neglected are usually fed ramen noodles and hot dogs, for those who don't know, because it's the cheapest thing that you could purchase in the supermarket. Please don't give your kids ramen noodles and hot dogs. Not that anything is wrong with ramen noodles and hot dogs, but it should not be their meal every day, all day, and cereal. That's nothing but sugar and salt, okay? So please make sure and give your kids nutritious meals. Moving on to the third thing that I want to discuss, loneliness, and that is across the board right now. Due to being at home and being stuck at home right now, a lot of us are experiencing loneliness. I would tell you personally, I live in Atlanta and my family is in New York and in other places, so I'm kind of I'm kind of by myself in a way when it comes to family. Thank God I have friends, but still, for a lot of us, this is the time to be with your family. And if you're not able to be with your family, it hit different, right? And so being able to keep our regular schedules and go to work and live our normal lives the way we do and stay busy like we do, it could be very trying at this very moment for so many of us, or being bored in the house because we've been stuck in the house for so long. This is a really good time to do something new. Find something that you always wanted to do and do it. Learn a new language, learn how to cook for all of y'all who like to order out and things like that. Like, there's a lot of things that you could do in the house. Clean your house, rearrange your closet, figure out something. Just don't be in the house bored. Okay, and not only that, but right now we really need, all of us need to be figuring out like what our next steps are, because everything is different. That leads me to my fourth point, which is finances. For a lot of us who lost our jobs, and I say us, a lot of us who lost our jobs, when you start thinking about, how am I going to pay my bills? Am I going to lose my car? Am I going to lose my house? Am I going to lose my business? What is that going to look like? For you who did not have your financial affairs in order, this is the perfect time to come up with a plan to get out of debt. This is the perfect time to come up with a savings plan, even if you're not making money right now, and just figure out, how am I going to come out of debt? How am I going to pay the bills that I have? How can I cut back on what I already have? You really need to figure out and take the time to like really revamp your finances and really pay attention to how you've been spending your money. And if you don't have any savings, figure out how to save. How could you save? How could you make money right now? How could you be more innovative or creative and create income? This is the perfect time to do so. This is the perfect time to challenge yourself. This is the perfect time to just start a business. This is the perfect time to do whatever it is you want to do. So this COVID-19 and quarantine is a blessing and a curse at the same time, because there's so much good that could come out of it, but at the same time, there's so much bad that came out of it too. But if you mind your business and you do what you need to do, for yourself, and I think right now, focus on yourself and use this time wisely. It would be amazing to see what could happen at the end of this season in our lives right now. On to my fifth point, which is fear. Wow. A lot of people are scared. Scared to go outside, scared to be around a lot of people, scared to be around anybody, scared to be around strangers, scared to go back to work. The fear of catching COVID-19 and dying from it. Like, if something was to happen to me, who's going to take care of my children? If something happened to me, do anyone know, like, what's going on with my life and my affairs, and where to find stuff and where to go and what to do and who to talk to? All these things are important right now. Do I have a will? Again, use this time if you did not have those things in order to get it in order. But it's normal to go through fear with something like this right now. It's normal to feel, a little anxiety. I think it's normal for everybody. It's just a matter of how you process it and how you cope with it. It's really critical to understand that it's not what you go through, but it's how you cope with what you go through. Not having finances the way you usually do, or the unknown wave that they keep talking about that may hit us again. Do the unknown. Am I going to go back to my job? Do I have to find a new job? Do I stay in this house? Do I have to move? Am I going to be evicted? All these different fears that people have right now. It's really important to cope accordingly, because the reality is you could go through anything, but what sets you apart is how you cope with it. So being able to cope with your fears are very important. And that causes me to move on to my last and final point, which is the psychological trauma that we are all facing right now. Trauma causes mental illness. Abuse causes mental illness, whether it's psychological, physical, emotional, sexual. All those forms of abuse and causes trauma, and trauma causes mental illness. If you were a person who dealt with certain things when you were a child, this may ignite whatever feelings that you may be experiencing right now due to this pandemic, due to this quarantine session where you're at home and you have time to really think and really I like you just it affects this type of trauma that we're all dealing with affects everyone differently. So be mindful how you treat other people. Be mindful how you talk to other people. Be mindful on how kind you are to someone else because you never know what they're going through. Another form of trauma. Right now, a lot of people lost a lot of loved ones, whether it was a parent, a child, just a loved one, a friend. It doesn't even matter who you lost. Like a loss is a loss, and grieving is grieving. And no one can ever tell you how to deal with those things. But I would tell you that coping with it is really important. Just cope with it in a healthy manner. Neglect is another form of trauma. Please do not add more trauma to your children on top of whatever it is that they're already going through. Another thing is don't disconnect with your loved ones. Don't disconnect with people. Don't disconnect with your friends. Don't try your best not to disconnect with your normal life as much as you can. Because in the end, all of this stuff, a lot of people are going to suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, which is PTSD. A lot of people are going to go through PTSD in the end because dealing and coping with all of this is really heavy. And coping in general, please don't self-medicate, y'all. You know, for a lot of people who lost their jobs, they may not be able to get their prescriptions. They may not be able to afford their prescriptions. They may not have insurance. If you need to go to the emergency room to get medical assistance, please go to the emergency room to get medical assistance if you cannot afford to go to the doctor. Do not stay home and die. Do not stay home and make yourself get worse because you're not a doctor and you may not know what's wrong with you. Just go seek help. Okay, medical professionals to do their jobs and do it well, that you would not contract COVID-19 if you go into the hospital because it's a different section altogether, okay? Not just that, but the self-medication, alcoholism, all this psychological trauma that we're experiencing, all of us are experiencing right now is very different. But I don't want you guys to self-medicate. I don't want you to turn to alcohol and drugs and street drugs, and I don't want you to neglect your health. I don't want you to not go to the doctor if you don't feel well. I don't want you to not go to the emergency room if you don't feel well. You have to take care of yourself because if you're not good, you cannot be good for someone else, okay? If you know someone being abused, please just step in, okay? And do something for someone else. Thank you so much for watching my video. Be kind to each other. Be your brother and sister's keeper. And until next time, you have a wonderful day. See you later.